I'm Matt Martelli. This is the Off-Road Racer podcast, and I'm here with what I would call one of the OGs, Kevin McGillivray. What's going on, Kevin?
Well, I want a definition of OG because if it means old guy, I'm going to probably say you're right.
It's like I guess it means original gangster, right?
Yeah,
but you're one of these guys who's been doing this a long time. You're not a big loud dude. You're not doing crazy Instagram videos. But like I said, you've been doing this a long time. You've raced with a lot of people. You've won a lot of races. Let's go back to the beginning. How'd you get into this? How'd you get into off-road racing?
Well, I mean, obviously you start having a love for being outdoors, and I got to thank my dad for that. I mean, I grew up as a little kid being turned loose in the San Bernardino National Forest. At 7, don't lose your little brother, be home by dark. And so exploring was just the number one thing we did. And then that migrated into mini bikes and then motorcycles. And the next thing you know, we're down in Lucerne Valley for lunchtime. And so as the goal to explore more areas became more common, what are these sand dune things? And so we started building dune buggies, and you build a dune buggy from junkyard parts in that era. And I had people that could take a stock Volkswagen brake drum and turn it into a work of art just with a hacksaw blade and a file and a lot of time. And so I was very much mechanically inclined and started working on things, and I buy my first car, 1966 Toyota Land Cruiser. And four-wheel drive. Next thing you know, I'm going places that I didn't know how to go, but I got there. And, the mechanical aptitude then opened the door for a variety of people that I met. And so we were building sand dune buggies, and a friend started with a high jumper Ascot 1 tube chassis that really was a race car. And it kind of coincided with someone that I met leaving that friend's house to go to the nearest pizza parlor. His garage door was open, and here was a Funko real Baja off-road class 10, 1200cc, two-seat car. And it kind of was like the moral of the story was this individual changed my life. His name's Arnie Gustin. And he raced two-seat class 10 and raced against guys like David Chrysler, who founded Raceco, and the Bishops and the Andersons, and it was addicting because of the people. And so I started kind of volunteering and helping Arnie on the weekends, and I'm going to college full time, and next thing you know, I'm working for him. And his company made clean rooms for making computer chips. And customers came to them and wanted machines to help with their processes. Meanwhile, I'm working in the machine shop full time, doing plant maintenance full time. On top of that, taking care of all the race car stuff and the pre-runners. And I can remember Arnie and his partner Frank walked into the race car room and said, "Hey, can you build a machine that'll pick up this thing of semiconductor wafers and move it from here to here to here?" And I had always, I got my wife to thank for this. She had saved old magazines called Machine Design, and I was infatuated with all the technology in there. And so I kind of knew what we could possibly do if you had the right resources. So we built one machine, and at the same time, we're going to all the races in Baja, and kind of not the success that Arnie deserved, and there were lessons learned from that, but it was just amazing times. And, for a young high school / college age person to be drug along in those adventures, I mean, I was hooked for life. That was all there was to it. We built that one prototype machine for a little company called IBM, and we won a worldwide shootout, and a whole new industry was created. And a few years later, Arnie wanted to start up a business just to do those machines and asked me to be his partner. Well, I thought about it for a nanosecond and said yes. And so what he did for mentoring me in racing and in business completely changed my life. Well, okay, my dad mentored me in adventure for outdoors, and Arnie's mentoring me in business and in racing. And then he tells me, okay, you need to go see this guy about getting parts. And that guy was Scott McKenzie, the founder of McKenzie's, the Sandmaster Racing Team, Hall of Fame. Doesn't do justice to his career by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
And for some reason, Scott took me under his wing. And, he helped me with his philosophies of how you built race cars and the things you paid attention to. And I always joke, there's somebody that restored one of his cars, and I looked at the picture and I told Scott, I go, yeah, they did a great job, but they didn't use the proper washers. And that was one of his favorite sayings of things that you did to allow for something to fail and you could still win the race.
Sure.
And so with, the help of Scott, I am now drug into this world where all of a sudden I know Tracy Valena, and the whole Tracy's Party Ice team was the first super team in off-road racing. And I get introduced to, Walker Evans at the Mizpah Hotel in Tonopah, and he taught me how to play a slot machine. The one and only time I ever did it, because I don't believe gambling is effective when you want to race. But I mean, it's like all of a sudden I'm meeting heroes, and they were so gracious and so helpful and wanting to give advice. And then now Mickey Thompson starts his short course series, and I'm on the rough driving committee. And now I'm building custom shock absorbers for Tracy Valena for all of his short course cars. And I'm meeting Ted Nugent and Marty Tripes and just how can you not stay in a sport that throws those kind of opportunities at you? But the opportunities were because of the people. And, the character of Scott McKenzie, he doesn't want the limelight. He'll tell you everything that went wrong in the 1971 Baja 1000, and they still won to this day. And he's 92, will be 93 in a couple of weeks. He has Christmas at my house every year. He really has no family but us, and I'm proud to be his family. And I'm proud of everything. He changed my business philosophy of how to build machines. So when we made machines for making computer chips, they were very, very reliable. I hired people through motorsports because I wanted people that wanted to win, that wanted to be the best, that took pride in what they did. It just been my entire life. Now, building a business, okay, we start out, we're racing class 10. I had built my first car that had a torsion bar linkage-based suspension when no one had anything like that, and the shocks didn't work right with that, so we started building our own shocks, and I'm introduced to Mickey Thompson, and he wanted to do some things with his big cars, and next thing you know, Scott buys one of every shock absorber you could buy, hands them to me, puts them in my truck, and says, take them apart, tell me what's different about them. So now I'm blueprinting everything from Bilstein and KYB and got to know the subtleties of what was going on inside. So then we decided, okay, maybe we can put some of these back together and use them, because Scott was going to throw them away, and that might help us with our race car. So we silver soldered refrigeration valves on them to where we could recharge the nitrogen and put better oil in them. And we took the Dodge truck shock and put a Cadillac piston in it so it would ride better. Well, now I got people calling me all the time. They want a set of these shocks for their car. And it wasn't enough just doing Tracy's. Now we're doing all kinds of desert cars and the reputation built for something that nobody else was doing at the time.
What did that feel like, though? Because, it's one thing to come up with an idea, but when you can physically build it and implement it and prove it in racing, that's pretty powerful, yeah?
Well, it's all comparative. Racing was easy to see common sense. The semiconductor industry is making sure you don't have too many of the wrong atoms in the wrong place. So it was not the huge challenge, but the ability to be successful all kind of came down to having the right team of people. And we grew the shock business to where it was something we ended up, Arnie and I started making racing shock absorbers. And we had, amazing success, because within a year or so, I'm going to all the IndyCar races and I'm doing shocks for Mario and Michael Andretti in the Newman Haas team in 89 and 90. And then our biggest sale ever was 200 shocks to Citroën for the Dakar Rally team.
And what was the brand that was under?
We had hired a guy named Don Richardson that had done the original invention for the linkage suspension on motorcycles. And he had some shock ideas. And in the small world, his patent attorney was my friend who we built the original dune buggies with, Dad, and he put us together. And so Jack Wagner knew that we like shocks, and he knew that Don liked shocks, and he knew that Don needed a job. So we hired him, and those shocks were sold under the brand name Rycor. And I have these photographs of the Nissan Le Mans cars with a Rycor sticker on the rear wing upright, and the Dakar cars, and testing with Jackie Ickx in Baja and swapping T-shirts with him. I still have a T-shirt from the legendary Jackie Ickx that won Formula One races in Le Mans, and meeting all your heroes in all different kinds of sports. I mean, the shock business massively opened up those, and so memories were incredible. But I kind of looked at it and I said, wow, we just sold 200 shocks at $1,800 a piece, but they cost us $1,800 a piece to make. Maybe I should concentrate on working on the machines we're selling to Motorola and making money. And we were supplying, multi-million-dollar machines at that point, and my time was better spent concentrating on that business. So, and it grew enough that all of a sudden, instead of prepping other people's cars for a drive, I started with my own car. And we got a Cheneth single-seat Magnum Class 10 car, and we built our own shocks for it. And that's in the days when Class 10 was a beam car, trailing arm suspension, Volkswagen 1650cc motor. And with the shocks that we had in that era, we overhauled 5 races. And, it was little-known guys like Herbst and Collins with Porsche-powered cars, and the ability to do good with Scott's philosophy and the creativity of, what the industry I was in, and now I got a full machine shop to make parts and pieces. And so we had advantages, but what I really had was mentors, and that, massively changed my life for the better. Well, after a few years of Class 10, it wasn't the challenge I wanted anymore. And I got invited to Glen Helen for a ProTruck ride and drive day. And now, I had met Ivan before at the Mickey Thompson races, and I don't think he remembered who I was because he meets so many people, but I got to go for a ride with him, and we went off one jump, and I signed on the dotted line.
And that was the birth of ProTrucks, really.
It was, well, they had been around. I mean, we called them slow trucks at the time because they really weren't defined as anything other than here's your parts and go. Eventually it evolved to where there was a better suspension package, and a lot of the reliability concerns got sorted out, and they were better. So, but the first couple of years, it really took a guy by the name of Bill Varnes, who was Mirage Racing, to convince me that this was a good thing to do. And so I ordered a ProTruck, but built by Bill Varnes, and went out and we did good. I mean, there was no question about it. And there were little things that were just so cool when I think back on it. Of all the different things I've done in racing, that was the most rewarding class, because you couldn't buy an advantage. And there were people that were definitely beyond the rules in a variety of areas. But, for example, the steering had a link in it that was called an S-link, and everybody called it the weak link. And, okay, I mean, how many spares could you carry in the truck and finish a race changing the steering link all the time? And Ivan would say, it's the same for everybody. And I agree it was.
But it still sucked.
It still was a challenge. Right. And the rule book said you can't weld on it, you can't replace it, you can't strengthen it by adding metal to it. When we were dumb kids and we wanted to bend roll bars on dune buggies, we had a torch and a tube and a whole bunch of sand. And we filled the tube with sand, heated with a torch, and we bent it, and it didn't kink. So we took the rod end out of my S-links, filled it full of sand, screwed the rod in, and never bent another one. But I always carried about 7 spares on the truck so no one would know we'd solved the problem. and just, it was rewarding because you could think a solution within the rules and have an advantage. And, ProTruck did a bunch of things that were, from a business standpoint, somewhat unfortunate misinterpretations and miscommunications, and it kind of went away. I mean, I got a second overall in Best in the Desert races in a ProTruck. And so we thought, how hard could it be to go to trophy truck? So we threw a big giant LS motor in the ProTruck and went racing. And I can remember finishing a Vegas to Reno, and the McMillans are all standing around, and Andy was in his first Robbie Gordon truck race.
Yep.
And he was going to get third place. And he had finished, and they're all celebrating. I looked up the hill, and I saw the configuration of our lights coming with Nels Castillo driving. And I thought, we just beat you on corrected time with a ProTruck with a big motor in it.
I remember that race. I was at that race.
And so, I mean, the adventure just kind of kept continuing. But getting to know Casey Folks was another mentor in my life for a different thing.
Yep.
I had probably been not the easiest person to be around, that I took everything so seriously. And Casey taught me how to have fun, and he mentored me that way. And then I felt, such a tie and friendship to him. He used to call me Best in Desert South, and he and Diane are like family to me, and we're going on cruise ship vacations together, and he calls me up and says, hey, we got to go look at this place for a course, and we're driving around some Indian reservation somewhere through brush that hadn't been cut in 100 years, and yeah, this lease Tahoe isn't new anymore, but it just, his passion, it was so infectious, and so I just started volunteering, and there were things that, I mean, every step in the way as a racer, that I think we owe it to the promoters to try to understand how hard it is to do that. And so there was not a single job that I didn't volunteer to do for him.
Yeah.
The most toxic environment was the timing and scoring bus.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing worse. Well, it was kind of the people that were in there. And it was a husband and wife that were at each other's throats the entire time.
Right.
And it's like, man, this is rough. The next hardest thing I did was a spectator area at the Mint 400 one year for him.
Right.
And it's like, there's not enough money to pay me to ever do that again.
Right.
I mean, there's a million thankless jobs, and there's hundreds of volunteers that do it because of their love for the sport.
Absolutely.
And so,
and we couldn't do it without them.
Yeah. And most racers just, they tunnel vision their own set of problems, and they don't look at the big picture of how fortunate we are that people put on races at all.
Yeah.
I mean, all the discussions that go on about whether there's too many promoters and there's not enough entries, and well, get off your butt and help.
Yeah.
It's
a thing that's really tough, because it's the idea of, of service, right?
Right.
It has changed, right? Like growing up in my era, and then I'm sure it was even more intense in your area. As a kid, you volunteered for things, right? Mm-hmm. It was your civic duty. And so
I still get sucked into / volunteer for things.
Yeah.
So.
And so like when you're passionate about something like desert racing, that, for me, that seemed like a really logical thing, So, and Casey was so good at inspiring people by showing them the opportunity,
Yeah.
And he would get.
He made life better.
Yeah, he did.
He just flat made life better.
But he would also frame it in a way where it's like, it didn't suck. It was like, hey, I need you to drive out in the middle of nowhere. Right. It's 110 by yourself.
And a t-shirt.
Right?
Yeah.
You get a pin and a t-shirt. Yeah. And
you got pins.
You're going to have,
I barely got t-shirts.
You're going to have a blast. Yeah. Like he would set them up for it. And instead of it being this thing where like, if you went and did that by yourself, you're like, yeah, wow, this is miserable. I remember I still use this line, right? To this day, it's the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's even beyond that. It's the best family.
Yeah.
And so in thinking about talking to you, it seems like the change I've seen in the sport is the evolutionary change that there really is no solution for, but there is a solution for how we treat and act each other as competitors. And I go out of my way to try to, shall we say, foster gentleman racing, more sportsmanship. Sure. We have a lot of people that come into the sport because they've been successful in something else. They don't know how hard it is to put on a race. They don't know how hard it is to build and prep a car. They just know they wrote a check, they showed up, and they got a flat tire, and it's somebody else's fault. And the attitudes really are not the way it was. When I went to my first race, I watched Fair and Checkers and Core literally yell and scream and fight with each other about fixing a little 1600 Baja Bug that wasn't in any of their clubs. Right. They just wanted to fix that car, and they put heart and soul. And next thing you know, they're all working shoulder to shoulder fixing, and they didn't even know the guy's name. And I just looked at it. I thought, wow, these people really, I mean, it mattered to me that sure. It was that. And so I ended up joining the Core Pit Club. And I mean, we went to one of the Mint 400s north of Las Vegas, and we hauled a trailer with 84 tires on it just for club members.
Right.
And okay, I had a step side pickup truck. And my wife Gloria is with me, and we're out there running this pit in the middle of nowhere, and there weren't outhouses or anything else. And it had been a long day, and it's like, it's time to go home. So she gets in the truck, she set her purse on the step of the step side, and off we went. Oh. We get back to the hotel room. Oh, no purse. Oh, crap. We got to kill the credit cards. Oh, what are we going to do? And it was tough being a young person having to fight that battle. So one of the guys I met in Checkers, Greg Simons, he just walked up and handed me $300 cash and said, here, and if you need more, just come find me. And her purse was found by a guy named Don Fair, who was a PPI Ivan Stewart pit guy, and he literally ran after us when he saw it fall, but wasn't quite conspicuous enough to be seen. And the character of the people in that era was everybody cared about everybody. They weren't so full of themselves that, you know, they were all aloof, and it was a family, and it felt so good. And I watched it kind of change, kind of with the death of the Volkswagen almost.
Sure.
Now, I used to volunteer at the UTV races, and I would do retrieval in my Bronco pre-runner, and I would meet a lot of the UTV guys. And I see hope in that class. I really do. And yeah. But it's not even that is economically pricing itself out of build it in a garage with leftover parts kind of situation. So there's undeniable change. It's change can be perceived as bad, but it can also be perceived as good. And I think if we just look at the people and we all try to do the best we can for each other regardless, then the sport will continue to be the magic, amazing thing that it is. Because, I mean, at every race I go to, I still see people jumping out, helping. I mean, we have people come out of the woodwork to volunteer to pit for my team, and I'm proud of them. I'm more proud of the people we put together than any result we could have.
Sure.
Although I want good results.
Of course.
Yeah. And then I think we need to mentor young people too.
100%.
So in the put your money where your mouth is, I've got 2 Jimco 10 cars sitting in the race shop that I purchased solely to help some young guys that are in the community that I've known since they were little kids, go from racing motorcycles into racing something a little safer with a roll cage. And my best friend, Bob Endress, his son, Jake, I mean, I remember hearing him scream when he was brand new home when he was born, and he's a fine young man now.
Yeah.
And he's co-driving with me in my trophy truck and a 10 car for him to race. And I got a picture of him with his buddy Chayton at the finish line, and you can't buy grins like that.
No.
You know,
but that's really cool that, you know, you identified the mentors who helped you in your life.
How can I not pay back?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important idea in a tenement of off-road racing. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we talk about the culture of it a lot and not just the act, because
yeah. It's far bigger than that.
I always describe it as it's like a mini war, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to find out very quick who people are when you put them in that environment.
Right. Who's in the trenches with you.
Yeah. And I think it also fosters this opportunity for people to rise up, right? Because they see other people doing.
Every person is doing something extraordinary.
Yeah.
If they're sitting in a checkpoint writing numbers down, or getting in a retrieval truck and figuring out how to get something out in the middle of nowhere, or building a race car. I mean, this is not the guy that sits home and watches a baseball game. Yeah. These are people that want to do and want to experience life. And I mean, last week, I'm fortunate enough. You had mentioned I've raced with a lot of different people. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I am racing with the greatest of all time, Rob McEachran.
Yeah.
And having him on the team is an unfair advantage. Not because of his experience, but the amount of dedication, the effort, the attention to perfecting the craft. I mean, I thought I was pretty obsessive about it, and I mean, I can't hold a candle to him. I mean,
his racecraft is pretty unparalleled. I mean, especially
but it's his life.
It's talent, but it's also like you have to look at the amount of experience that he's had in short course and desert racing in the eras, just like you were talking about, him being a teenager and starting, racing for, the circus car, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I was in that race.
Yeah.
I remember when he started.
So you saw that whole thing. And then, think about
his dedication to making a career out of it is something no one else has tried that hard as him.
No, I totally agree. So. I have the utmost respect for Rob, and also, like, I appreciate the fact that that you're giving them the opportunity to race with you.
Oh, what I mean? It's a whole nother story that he thought that our program was good enough that he wanted to be involved.
Sure.
And we've added other people to the overall package in the team. I mean, Wade and Israelian from Alltech used to co-drive with Rob, and now we're going out to the springs and testing, and not only making big improvements, but really enjoying ourselves in the process.
Yeah.
And I look around, the key to success in life is associate with good people.
100%.
And I mean, we have a team of people with, David Peralt from ID Designs. And then, last year I won the Legacy Series championship with Jack Olagus, giving him, that young man, a start.
And you've raced with his dad as well.
Well, yeah, that was an interesting phone call.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve, my truck isn't going to be done. And I, by chance, was talking to Rick Geiser, and he says, there's a brand new G6 for sale. And it's like, yeah, we have these in inventory. And I said, I don't really want to buy it all myself. You want to go in partners? And then he says, oh, yeah, in a hot minute. So we went in partners on it. But he thought I wanted to race with him, and I wanted to race with Jack. And Steve is one of the finest human beings I've ever known.
Absolutely.
And his loyalty to his race partner, Mark Newhand, was like, I'm not even going to try to disrupt that. I know how tight that program is. And so, no, I want to give Jack a chance to move up. And it was like silence for a second, and it was, well, yeah, sure. And then we told Jack. Right. And I mean, when I see young people like Jack Olagus and Caden McEachran and Jake Endress, there's hope for the world.
100%.
I mean, I am so proud that there are things, and I'll throw another name into the books. Carter Klein. Okay, he's been cleaning up on a motorcycle. He just was the little kid in the neighborhood showing up, hanging around my race shop.
Right.
And now I tell him, geez, Carter, when you come over, I got to leave the big garage door up because your head's so big you can't even fit. And then he wins again and again and again. It's like, I got to build a big barn or something. I don't know what we're going to do, Carter. And I'm so proud of him. And he's such a fine person from a fine family. And then his brother, Mason, is arguably one of the best ride a motorcycle, navigate Dakar guys on the planet. Yeah. And they're just the kids riding bikes from our neighborhood. And who would think an obscure little spot in northern Los Angeles County could end up with that many fine young people as they did. And they've all helped each other be better.
Right.
And that was kind of a key, when my daughter was growing up, she made friends before preschool that are lifelong friends, and they challenged each other to be better and better and better throughout their whole lives. And I'm proud of all of them.
Right.
And so, yeah, we have a responsibility to mentor, and we have a responsibility to set a positive example and not be selfish. And I think there's a problem with overall society that isn't as big in off-road, but we've gone through such a period of prosperity that we're forgetting how much we need each other.
Sure.
And we need each other.
Yeah.
And when someone needs me, I'm there for them.
Yeah.
All the time, every time. That comes first. You have to be loyal, responsible, trustworthy, and the rest just falls in line. And so when I see these young guys that have those attributes, I mean, it's fun.
It's really cool though that you're taking the time and the effort to offer that. Like, look, Jack. Let's use Jack Olugis as an example, right? Like what I don't think people understand is, you can be young and you can be fast and you can have a lot of skills, but the amount of racecraft that you have to learn to be really good at off-road racing is just immense, right? And it's everything from like, where do I
How do you learn?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and it's funny because as somebody who's raced but also now as a promoter and having all these relationships with drivers and looking at how they mentor either their sons or other people, or some of them don't, right? Mm-hmm. I have this kind of unique view of it where I think it's really important to pass that racecraft on and to have that mechanism. So, I for one appreciate that because I think right now we have a bigger opportunity than we've ever had in off-road racing because of the amount of young people that are coming through the the ladder system of youth racing and UTVs and UTV racing and moving all the way up to trucks, racing Dakar, etc. But they still need to know the racecraft.
Off-road racecraft is kind of what I'll say is referred to as common sense. Critical thinking. What do you do? How do you make decisions? Oh, there's a rock in the way. What do I do? I mean, it's all the ability to use your brain and think. And people that are subject to digital dementia that don't remember anything because they ask their phone to answer every question, they're not going to do very good. But people that can put two and two together and have a memory, I mean, Jack grew up around off-road racing. It wasn't like it was drilled into him, racecraft. He is so smart and he tries so hard at everything he does in his life that it's not a surprise that he goes he's a student of trying to be successful.
Yeah.
And most of it is because the worst thing you could do is the same thing I used to feel was if I let my dad down. And every day of my life, and he's been gone a long time, is to make my dad proud. Jack does everything he can to make his parents proud. No question.
The thing I love about Jack in particular is, because I've known him since he was a little kid, and immediately you could see the desire. Like he wanted to be his dad, right? And
he wants to be better than his dad.
Right. Now, I think now he does, but like in the very beginning, he was like, man, my dad's my hero. He wanted it so bad. And it's that old adage of like, you can't teach desire. You can teach all the other things, the racecraft and all that stuff, but not desire. That has to be there innately.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't get to choose your family. You do get to choose your friends. And I choose the Olugis as friends. I choose them as part of my racing family. There's so many people that were volunteers for Best in the Desert that I choose as my racing family. There are so many people like Scott McKenzie that helped me in unbelievable ways. Jeff Fields, who built my transmissions, and on and on and on. I mean, there's people who taught me lessons that they didn't even know they were teaching lessons, and then years later reconnect. There was a guy that built most of the aluminum funny car bodies in the 70s, and he had a shop in the San Fernando Valley, D&D Metalworks, Don Baumek. What a legend of a fabricator. In San Diego County, you had the Unique Metal Products guys, and in San Fernando Valley, you had Baumek. And I went to him at the suggestion of Scott to get some scoops made for Arnie's Fun Co. And he said, hey, I don't have time to do this right now, but if you stay and I'll teach you how to do it, I'll make these for you. And he spent the afternoon showing me what he did to form and stretch the aluminum and using not massively special tools. And I internalized all that. And to this day, I use those techniques. And amazingly enough, my friend Bob Endress used to work for Malmec when he worked at B&M Automotive. And the world all kind of came back together. Decades later, Don Baumick goes on one of our UTV rides, and I told him of that day and how he had changed my life, because I'm a dumb kid and he cared enough to teach me some of his skills. That was his way of making a living.
Right.
I mean, at the time, it's like, my God, I mean, he's teaching me how to not have to pay him in the future.
Right.
That wasn't his goal.
Right.
His goal was to give me an opportunity.
That's really cool.
And now we go UTV rides, and to connect after all these years is pretty special. With the amount of years that I've had racing, I don't know how long it goes on, but my love of the desert and love of racing isn't going to stop. I mean, the UTV exploration rides we do are epic. And what gives me hope is the guys that are going on the rides with me is like Bob Spar. He's in his 90s. He founded B&M Automotive. He founded SEMA. His son, John, is a great friend of mine, and he founded Replay Camera. These are captains of industry, and the people they have on this ride are captains of industry, and it's an honor to be with them. And the places we go and the memories we're making, it's off-roading that is what makes off-road racing so great.
Sure.
Racing in and of itself, I mean, after the years with the IndyCar guys, no creativity. If you step a little bit outside the box and it doesn't work, you lose your job, you lose your sponsors. We have more creative people in off-road racing than all the rest of motorsports combined.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's just build a four-wheel drive trophy truck. Why not, right?
It's one of those things I'm really proud of this culture, especially because it's the majority of it is self-taught. And, as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at asking the questions of like, where did this come from and why? We were talking earlier, like I was fortunate that growing up in this culture, we had print media, and that was very strong for decades, right? And unfortunately, a lot of that stuff never got digitized, so the next generations don't know.
I'm kind of happy Dusty Times is getting little by little digitized.
That is, yeah.
But I mean, there were others. There was Off-Road Action News, and there was a reporter named Sam Wilshire that's kind of maybe largely been forgotten, and certainly, I mean, if you finished a race, you talk to Judy Smith.
That's right.
And, to know those people personally, I mean, Jean had a soft side that most people didn't know.
Yeah.
She made us Christmas ornaments. She knitted them and gave us Christmas ornaments every year. And I mean, there was the tough, I drove Baja by myself exterior of Jean and Judy, but I mean, there was a good human there that, you can't say enough about what they did for the sport. And,
absolutely.
And indirectly continue to do.
Yeah.
It never stops, because if we pass the lessons down, they keep going.
You were telling me a story earlier about, basically getting a discount on Dusty Times because you would help them fold the issues.
Oh, I didn't get a discount. Are you kidding? Nobody got a discount. I had to pay for my subscription like everybody else. I didn't say Gene wasn't a penny pincher.
Right.
So, no, it was the right thing to do. It was important. I mean, and like I say, it was the victory after the victory, which if we can find a way to do that, that's a big deal. That mattered a bunch. I mean, I still have the 5 times I was on the cover, and some were in ProTruck and some were in Class 10. And I covet those more than any of the trophies. Some trophies are kind of gaudy sometimes. So, But when you were on the cover of Dusty Times, you knew you'd arrived. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
it's cool too to see, obviously that was created for off-road racing by off-road racers, right? So it wasn't like and oftentimes I felt like within the context of these other automotive magazines, like we are always treated like, oh, the back marker of like, oh, and then this happened over here.
It's their loss.
Yeah. So it was cool, like growing up and getting Dusty Times. And, I remember going to a shop in El Cajon and we didn't have a subscription, but we'd always go in there and we'd start weeding through the last 4 or 5 of them. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like on any Sunday, it's a desert race and it's over and there's nobody there. Right.
Yeah.
The advantage of our memories and our friendships and something like Dusty Times is enduring. The ability to search something on the internet and find a picture of the Funko I was driving in 1983 and won the score race in Barstow, it's like, that's pretty cool, you know? But I mean, that makes me happy to be able to see that old picture, but it's not the same as when everybody in the sport saw the picture. Yeah. And then it makes me mad because that day Larry Ragland beat us by a couple of minutes for the overall. It's like, we could have had the overall if my co-driver would have been in his driving suit when I finished the first half of the race, when I came in for the driver change. It's like, the level of preparedness. Now we're putting 100 gallons of fuel in 45 seconds and changing 2 tires. And, then it was pouring dump cans into funnels or actually not dump cans, 5-gallon jerry cans into funnels. And,
right.
The evolution of the sport is one to be proud of. Economically, you can make a small fortune in off-road racing if you start with a big one.
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely. Was there, was there a race moment that you remember that, is your favorite moment? I know that's hard because you've had such a long career.
The first go-to thing in terms of favorite moment is the competitor wants to think of the race. And then I thought, answer honestly. There was a Las Vegas 200 race that Best in the Desert did that finished on the Jean Dry Lake. And I was racing in ProTruck, and we had a couple little setbacks, and I want to say there's no way we could get second place, and there's no way we're going to lose third. And a few miles from the finish line, I had my 13-year-old daughter riding with me. And I just saw the finish line in the distance and the inflatable arch. And I said, Sarah, you want to drive across the finish line? And she goes, but Dad, I don't know how to drive. And I said, what better time to learn than now? And she steered it, and I kind of helped. And fortunately, she was able to get a gas pedal to go. And I'm popping between neutral and first, so that we didn't go where we weren't supposed to, and helping with the steering. And now she takes checkered flag and she's got to drive up on the mesa. That's not an easy thing to do. And she drove up on the mesa, and Casey looked and saw this little teeny blonde girl driving this ProTruck and about fell off the mesa, and she did the TV interview. And as a father, it's pretty obvious that's my favorite moment in all the years I've raced, and started in 1976. Yeah. So,
but what a gift to her too, right?
Oh, I don't know. She thinks I put her in an awkward position, probably. My dedication to her is my gift to her.
Yeah.
And she knows how much I love her, and it's to the best memory by far.
Yeah. Off-road racing culture is such a family-based sport. I see things like that happen quite a bit. I spent quite a bit of time with the McMillans, and I saw this relationship between Scott and Andy in particular. And I'm like, this is magic, man. Most kids at Andy's age, he was, in his late teens, they're not hanging out with their parents, let alone racing with them. Yeah. And spending all this time together.
Well, I was standing in registration for one of the Baja 500s, and Corky's next to me. And he asked me how things were going. He knew I'd started my own business. And I said, well, we've been doing really good with Mitsubishi here in the United States, but we can't sell anything in Japan. And next thing he knows is, okay, here's my card, call my office. I have this connection in Japan. You know, if there's anything they can do to help. Now they're in home building supplies, and it was not that it was going to be help. It's just that the legendary Corky was offering to help me, who was a nobody at the time.
Right.
You know, when Scott was racing 1200cc Class 10, we were racing 1200cc Class 10. And the ladder system is something that I believe needs work. Maybe we do a class by age, and old rich guys can't race in that class, and we try to come up with something affordable, because we need to come up with affordable another generation of racers. It can't be this, if it wasn't for my dad, I couldn't do it type situation.
Sure.
I mean, obviously it's going to take a lot to do anything at this point. I'm so enthused and terrified about the Polaris race car from the factory. You know, spending time talking to Caden about it, it's like, wow, this is real. I mean, and this is a very significant shift. I see it as being a potential entry level, but not necessarily an entry level for younger people.
Sure.
It'll be a kid that gets to race with his dad, but it's not quite the same that way. I think we need to foster not, you know, little teeny go-kart youth classes or anything, or 180cc razors. I mean, I think we need to have a true desert racing, you know, ladder system. I mean, that creates opportunities that build the future generations of racers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we put so much emphasis on the youth part of it, is like, not that it was a bad thing, but, you know, in the 90s, you know, the majority of people who were competing at the top level were wealthy businessmen, and most of the time in which your business becomes wealthy is, or when your business does well, is you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, right? So as a kid, I could tell you, like, that was a bit of a turnoff. Like, I would look at these guys and be like, well, that guy's not the, you know, the heroic looking good.
So you see, you have something against older people? Come on.
Well, not anymore now that I'm getting older. But you know, we came from, you know, action sports, and it was very, very youth driven, and almost really to its detriment, right? Where like everybody would look at you if you know, you're 28, you're like, you should retire, right? And that's one of the cool things about off-road racing is you can, you know, I mean, look at Raglan and Rossler. I mean, not only are these guys still competing, they're still, you know, competing for overall wins, right? So, I think that, you know, I mean, and you, I mean, like there's, you know, I mean, I was trying to figure out the other, did Jack just win in your truck this last race, or was that his truck?
It was my truck.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
But let me explain to you what that means to me.
Right.
When I got fired from driving my truck, it's because Steve calls and says, hey, we want to rent your half of the truck for this year. Jack came to Steve and said, you know, I've won races with Kevin. I've won a championship with Kevin. I want to win with you, Dad. How could I say no?
Right.
How could I say no? And it gives me goosebumps thinking about those two winning that race recently, and what it means to the family, what it means to the extended family of friends. And you know, Jack talked to me afterwards, and I mean, it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. And, you know, you knowing Steve, I mean, she's,
oh yeah.
I mean, he's too nice to be a car dealer.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think there's only a couple people that ever were given ambassador awards to the sport by Casey, and it's Steve and I.
Yeah.
And he always called us brothers.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we first started racing together, I kind of had to stop for a while because I got diagnosed with cancer and had to fight that for a bit. And, you know, Steve being all into racing, he, you know, had to go keep racing. And so, when I kind of came back from it, he already had his program going with John Swift at the time, and so I got to go do something else. And so I ended up racing with Chad Ragland, and having Larry along on top of that. And there's a couple of young people that I have met in this sport that outside of racing, we've talked about family life.
Sure.
And, one was Chad Ragland and the other was Justin Lofton. And both of them didn't think that they would be good dads. They hadn't had kids yet. And I mean, my comment to both of them was, are you insane? You had fantastic dads. You'd think you didn't retain any of that? You guys will be great.
Yeah.
And I watched Justin with Liam, and it's like, oh, yeah, you got this down solid.
Yeah.
I mean, fantastic dad is an understatement. And Justin was part of the Steve Jack crew on this last race. And so it's nice to see, great people be successful, but it's also nice to see that being a good dad kind of pays off pretty good, too. And,
sure.
And Chad was a great dad.
He was a great dad. He was a great friend, you know.
It just was not fair.
No.
That's about the best way you can describe what happened to him.
Yeah.
And so, when somebody tells you have cancer, you've got to figure it out. And
scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't know until you educate yourself. And my kind of cancer, they told me, oh, it's the best kind to have. Great. That makes me feel a lot better.
The best side.
But then it's do the homework, do the research. What do you do? How do you do it? And I made, I'll say, an economic mistake of staying with HMO insurance, and they run you through the system. And I had to have more surgery because they didn't take all the tumors out.
Right.
And, the advice I have been telling people ever since then is, if somebody tells you have cancer, go to a hospital that is a teaching hospital, not just a money-making next door hospital. I ended up going to UCLA, found the staff and it's a different level. It's more like racing dedication.
Sure.
They're not just looking at revenue. They're looking at it from how do we make everything better?
Right.
Now, there's mercenary because they want to develop patents and things that make money for the university and themselves, but it's the best and brightest. And I went back to UCLA, and that's a couple decades ago now. And I mean, I've been thinking about it recently because of George Antill.
Yeah.
Same kind of cancer. And if you educate yourself, there are different types of thyroid cancer, and he had a more aggressive type, and he fought it, and it came back, and he fought it, and it came back. And but man, did he make some memories on that Mesa. Oh, yeah. Because we sat there and we learned more about George in a lot of those interviews than he learned about our race.
It's funny. It's funny because my brother and I were talking about him, and we had this kind of funny relationship with him because we basically removed him from the Mesa, right? And it wasn't because we didn't like him. It was just because we wanted a different look and feel. And we remained friends. And it was so funny because he would call me all the time and go, hey, whenever you're ready, I'm here. And I'm like, and he even came and did stuff, at races, especially when we were still involved with Best in the Desert. That helped us. I mean,
well, the big thing is it was his life,
The other thing that I really want to highlight about George is that he did something that nobody else would do. Right?
Oh God, yeah.
So
there was a guy before him, JC, that also could sing. And that was a unique dynamic,
right?
That Best in the Desert had. And I remember when I went, even how we went to our first Best in the Desert race was kind of a novel set of circumstances. We were racing ProTruck, and Score had decided to create the Baja Truck class, which was just going to crater ProTruck.
Right.
And so we asked for a meeting, and Sal went to Tony LaCitra's metal fabrication shop, and most of the owners all showed up there. And he started with the meeting with walking in, I don't care if any of you sons of bitches ever to come to one of my races again. It's the biggest pain in the ass because there was all this legal stuff going on behind the scenes we didn't know about.
Sure.
And so, okay, where are we going to go? And a guy out of Barstow that was in our pit club had gone to the first Vegas to Reno, and he did a pit report. And it was like, wow, this guy really cares about the racers. This guy, I mean, you know, he gave us this and that, and the course was well marked, and everything happened on time. And I mean, all the promoters, the boxes were checked. And so we're sitting there dumbfounded by being told by SCORE that they didn't want to see us. And I said, well, we just had this report from Joel Stankovich, and he said, this is a pretty cool thing. And next thing you know, we got 12 ProTrucks going to Best in the Desert. And it kind of helped make Vegas to Reno a thing.
Sure.
I mean, that was a big chunk of trucks to show up, and then Ivan's TV program on top of that.
Yeah.
And I view that as just an inflection point that maybe it was, I know Sal, it was unintended to have that kind of impact. I mean, he was making a statement that he really wanted us there. I mean, we all kind of knew that, but Machismo said, oh, well, you don't want us there, we won't go.
Sure.
SCORE is too important.
Yeah.
And too important to all of us to hold a grudge, shall we say.
But it was a very important, Casey did something that I feel that's overlooked, which was establish, a level of, or reestablish a level of racing in America that paralleled what was going on in Mexico. I think there was a point where SCORE had to, for lots of different reasons, retrieve to, being in racing in Mexico. And I could tell you as a promoter, it's not easy to do the races up here. It's more expensive. There's more liability.
Well, I can remember when SCORE left Parker, it's because there weren't enough hotel rooms for executives from the SCORE sponsoring companies to stay. And, in that era, you couldn't bring in a gazillion motorhomes like King of the Hammer does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that problem's been solved. I mean,
we still run into that problem a little bit at Parker.
Then you have to live with it because we're going to get moved farther and farther out, and there aren't going to be rooms. They're going to have to learn campfires, is what it amounts to.
Which isn't really a bad thing.
It would be fantastic.
Right?
It would be fantastic.
Especially if we're in an area where the cell phone doesn't work.
Well, I mean, I had a business relationship from Germany, fly into Las Vegas, and then drive down to Laughlin because they wanted to meet with me while I was racing there. And it's like, I got this window. And this guy came out and was, he could not believe it. He flat could not believe it.
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing like that in Germany, but I mean, it made an impression on him, guaranteed.
Sure.
And, we got a big tent. We've got Steve's 2 trucks and my 2 trucks. And that was the other thing that I guess I felt, kind of going back to the great people situation. When I looked at that day and I had the great guys from ID Designs and I had the Geyser brothers all helping us. And I'm not even racing a Geyser brother truck. And, at our Parker race this year, Rick changed a tire for me out at Midway. And the tire had air in it, but it was just way too hot. And he did it without gloves and burned the tips off his fingers. I mean, the dedication that man has for the sport and his friends, I mean, he and I are friends for life. There's 100%. No question. They don't make people like that. I mean, that is mattered massively. And I just knew him as the legend of building trucks.
Sure.
And I sell my business. What do you think the first thing I did? I called up Rick Geyser and ordered a luxury pre-runner because you want something to say that it was worthwhile all those decades. And I worked with him on that. And then there were some things that needed to be finished. And he flew to Burbank and I picked him up and he stayed at my house in the guest room and we worked in my race shop. And he's my friend for life.
Yeah.
Once he saw that, I could machine things and weld things and maybe have different ideas how to build things. I mean, kindred soul doesn't even begin to describe it. And I'm here talking to you because he told me I had to. So.
Well, he was just in here and we started talking about, lots of different people. And like, I've known you, I've known of you for a long time. In fact, it's really funny because I remember sitting in Casey's office and I can't remember what it was we were discussing. And while I'm sitting in his office,
he ambushed me on the phone or something.
Yeah, he called you on the phone and says, hold on, I'm going to call Kevin and get his input on this, and got your input. And then we kept going back and forth on the subject. And then he's like, okay. And then that night we were at Chapala's having dinner with Steve Olagus, getting his input, right? And it was one of the cool things about Casey mentoring, me and my brother, was that, he would introduce us to all of his people, his assets, right? And there was no like, hey, I want to keep you at arm's distance.
Friendships all in.
It's funny. Obviously, I had to earn his respect in the beginning of the relationship, but I also remember, the day I went in there and talked to him about like, hey man, like we're a media company. We bought the name for the Mint 400. Do you want to team up? Right. And I thought we were going to go into some hard negotiation. And he's like, yes. Right. Like immediately. And then he goes into explaining to me that the very first race that he ever volunteered for was the Mint 400 when Walt lost.
Right.
And I'm like, I walked out of that room going, okay, all right, I think we can do this.
I was at Barstow when Walt rolled to a stop with Insight. And we thought it was a double power line road, and he was on the upper power line road, and we were on the base of the desert where the course went by. And what's he doing up there? And I didn't know that we'd lost a legend. Yeah. And then the ambulances showed up, and I was volunteering the day that Casey had his stroke at Parker, and I was way out on Shea Road, and Keith is radio relaying, and I could tell by tone of voice. And then I heard Diane, and my heart sunk. Nobody was saying what happened, but I knew that we had lost a legend.
Yeah.
And it's our job to never let anything he ever taught us go away.
Yeah, I agree.
In any way we can.
I agree.
So, because he made life better for people that didn't even know it at the time.
Thousands of people, literally, right?
I mean, we're in a cruise in the middle of the Mediterranean, and it's formal night. And formal for him was a turtleneck sweater. It's about as formal as it got. And, the ponytail was, and no hat. God, that was that was
dressing up.
Yeah, we like our hats, that's for sure, because it keeps the head from getting sunburned. But, we'd had our great meal with, Diane was dressed beautifully, and my wife Gloria was beautiful. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy on the planet with her. It's many, many years we've been together. And
do you remember how you first met Casey?
Kind of, yeah. I remember.
Did he yell at you?
No. I kind of played a practical joke on him. He had bought all the pre-runs were either he rented something from a rental agency that didn't know him and then changed tires and wheels on it and took the air dams off and flogged it. Or there was he had this Jeep Scrambler. And the first time I kind of met him was the oil pressure switch fell off the Scrambler and all the oil pumped out. And, there was plenty of people finding oil, but not a lot of people knew how to get a broken 8th pipe plug out of a block and find something laying around you could put in the hole to fix it. And,
right.
But I don't know that he noticed anything other than we fixed his car that day. Where I got to know him was he then purchased a Kurt LeDuc Bronco to lead the pre-runs. And we left the Gene Dry Lake and we got like 5 miles. And I had a very nice Bronco pre-runner at the time. And I was like 4th or 5th in line behind him. And he rolls to a stop and gets on the radio. Somebody up here and figure out how to get these damn power windows to work. And I thought about it for a second, and I opened the door to the Bronco, got out, found a suitable rock, walked up, and I go, like this? And he just looked at me like with the death look, like, you're going to break the window to solve my problem? And he called me after the pre-run was over, and he goes, would you mind if you led the pre-runs and I rode with you? And we did it for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it was hell getting him to wear a seatbelt, because you had to kind of get your G-forces just right to keep the ponytail from hitting the roof of the Bronco, because he's always jumping out putting ribbon on something, and it ruined the passenger side door of the Bronco several times. And he goes, I got a body shop, they can fix that. And the miles that we had in that Bronco, and then, now I'm bringing my daughter Sarah along, and she's sitting in the third seat in the back that we affectionately refer to as the rat hole. And I can see her in the rear mirror. Casey can't see in the rear mirror. And we didn't have an intercom for her. We had headsets for us. And,
right.
And he goes, pull up and stop. I got to take a whiz. And so, okay, pre-run, stopping, don't run into me. And we kind of pull up and stop. He jumps out and he takes his whiz. He turns around and sees Sarah. Oh, God, was he embarrassed. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she's going, look, I've been around guys at races my whole life. This is not a surprise. I didn't see anything. Don't worry about it. And I mean, his genuine love and affection for her was, family without family.
Yeah.
And when she went to Europe to do her semester abroad when she was in college, it was terrifying for me. And he goes, look, you don't have to worry. That little girlie's got a good head on her shoulders. And that made me calm down, that I was going to be able to live through her going over there for 6 months. And yeah, he was one of my best friends and a mentor of how to live life and enjoy it more. And to have, been introduced to so many people over the years that positively affected my life. I'm doing my best to try to pass it on when the opportunity presents itself, but you never quit. You never give up. You keep trying.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't have illusions that people are going to jump up and sponsor an old guy like me. I mean, I have done a couple of interviews where they say, who are your sponsors? And I go, well, I don't really have sponsors. I have people that I sponsor. And, I sponsor the people that provide the products that allow me to be successful.
Sure.
And free something that is excrement is still excrement. It's got to be good stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud of the people that take the time to make the parts and pieces that work good and survive the unbelievable hell on earth we put them through. I'm excited about the opportunities for what's going on in the UTV world, because there's not junkyard Volkswagens anymore.
Yeah.
I think UTV with some kind of horsepower restriction, and then migrate to class 10, and then from class 10, we need something like ProTruck.
Yeah.
And 6100 jumped that ship.
Yeah. We inherited that. And that was really unfortunate because, again, like the original idea behind 6100.
I got the phone call when it was first thrown out there. It was like, really? We want this many old beat up pre-runner trucks with white fenders out there that you have to go retrieve?
Yeah.
It quickly migrated away from that, didn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, just the limiting it to a 37-inch tire.
That was because of the tire sponsor.
Yeah, and but also limiting the horsepower. I mean, now the 6100s are as expensive as what trophy trucks used to be, right?
Yeah, I bought an ID Design 6100 truck as a practice truck.
Right.
I mean, one thing that Rob had said years ago was he had told Steve, one of the reasons he thought he was so good was just the seat time he got. He was racing here, racing there, always doing something.
Yeah.
We can't have a race truck that's done 3 weeks before the race and go drive around and be as competent as we're going to be if we're out driving around the rest of the time too. So, it makes you more comfortable, it makes you faster, and it helps you define what you need to do to make everything faster. So, I mean, going from, wow, I actually have an ID Designs trophy truck to I have two and half a geyser and a geyser pre-runner is just like, I have an addiction.
Yeah.
There's a problem here. But I also I'm not insane. Okay. It's not like I'm taking this money and flushing it. These are all assets that could be sold and there's value. So it's not a complete total loss. So when people think about racing, I mean, if you look at it economically, well, yeah, you can buy pre-runners and maybe if you buy the wrong one, it's worth half. But I think the right time of year, I can make money on the Geyser pre-runner because people
Sure.
don't want to wait 2 weeks or 2 years. 2 weeks, that'd be a dream, to get one.
Right.
They want it now. And the same thing with good race cars. I mean, I sold my ProTruck with the big motor in it to Cardi Beal, and I didn't even have it listed for sale. And I mean, he won the next 2 races in it until the prep wore off.
Right.
In terms of the cost of racing, too often when people think about getting into the sport, they think it's just a total loss. And if you do it right, it's not. I mean, you can sell your chase trucks and trailers and
Sure.
maybe you budget, you're going to lose half of it. But, if someone wants to make money in the sport, then they have to find something they're providing that no one else is.
Yeah.
And that's hard because there's incredibly talented, creative people already making things for the sport. Or you wouldn't have $2 million trophy trucks being built.
No, totally. I mean, we're in a very interesting place, and I want to hear your opinion because again, I'm not going to say seen it all, but you've seen
It's seeing and caring desperately about it.
Right. But you've seen a lot of the evolution of it. Like, where do you think we go from here? What do you think the future holds?
Well, I mean, we focus on the idea that we're going to solve the future needs of the sport by making a class or a class change. And I've seen it be, I'm going to say, manipulation for the gain of a few. There's a new rule change. Yeah, we're all going to have this brand of motor and it's going to be better and more cost effective. And you chase away a bunch of people and you get a few new people, but it's still the same people. What we're really missing is the affordability of our car being number 502 at the Mint 400 one year, because we built it mostly out of big borrowed junkyard parts, everything else. Our first race was an absolute hoot and a half, and we only got one lap at Barstow. Jim and I started, and it was going to be swap drivers, and there was 4 of us that were all going to take our turn trying to go 250 miles. And we had a borrowed motor from a guy named Tim Caves, and we got a junkyard battery and it's luck of the draw start in that era. So we had a stock Baja in front of us, and the dad of the kids in the Baja kept coming up to us in this big bad unlimited car we'd built, saying, "Please don't kill my kids. They're the only ones I got." And it's like, we're not going to kill them. And he was worried about them, and it was their first race. And so off we go. And we caught them instantly and went by them. And then the motor goes, da, 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 and we roll to a stop, and by they go. Okay, and it turning over won't fire. Well, carburetor problems. After enough minutes, things work themselves out, start up, off we go, pass them. A few more miles, da, 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 da. We must have passed those guys 20 times in 30 miles trying to go and stop and go and stop. And we didn't have a good vent on the carburetor, and it was getting plugged with dirt, and it was getting worse. But the memorable thing was the last time we rolled to a stop, there's not enough battery to restart. And there's an area in Barstow that used to be referred to as the Mile of Danger that's south of, what the main pit area is now, and it's all big giant moon rollers. And we come rolling up into this hill, and it stops, and there's a photographer there. And she was kind of somebody that you saw at all the races because she had a game she played to get good action shots. She had this big straw hat and a big Suburban that was like metal flake blue and powder blue in the middle in that era, like a 73 Suburban. And she didn't wear any clothes at all, just a camera. Got all the cool action shots because the drivers are looking at her instead of driving. That's where our car died. And so this naked photographer that had seen too much sun, there's no question it was hard on her skin. And she jumps in her car and comes cruising on over and jump starts us, and we get back to Maine, and it's like, wow, what a sport, Totally. You get a jump start from a naked girl photographer. That's only off-road racing, period.
100%.
So
it's funny because we have a lot of the archives of the Mint. And so I've seen photos of her, actually not nude, but
I don't even remember her name. I used to know it.
I don't think I'll have to look at the file to see if it has her name on it. But in the photo, she's holding a sign and a beer. Right?
Yeah, usually there's something covering in all the photos you saw. But when you're out there racing, the camera was here.
Right.
So
yeah,
what a sport.
Yeah.
My God.
No,
It's made my life utterly fantastic.
Well, and that's one of my next kind of questions is like, what is it that keeps you involved? You know, it's
the people. I mean, I said before, you can't choose your family. You can't choose your friends. I mean, if you want to meet the best people on the planet, go to an off-road race. I mean, they are challenging themselves. They're creative. They're problem solvers. They're loyal. They're dedicated. They're humorous. All the things that make life entertaining, shall we say.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just knuckle down and go to work and go home and do nothing and go to work the next day. But looking forward to an off-road race, I mean, my entire life is based on looking at a racing calendar and going, what are we going to do? I spent a year looking forward to this 1,000-mile thing, and I knew win, lose, or draw, when it was over, I was going to be disappointed, because now what am I looking forward to? It was a big leap to do something like that, and now there's not another big leap. So, okay, I still like racing, and I'm looking forward to future events, but it reinforces that racing makes challenging memories in every way possible. And sometimes I'll kind of wander away from the group and get a little elevation and look back, and I'm so proud of the people that care to come and help, that think about helping, that do everything they can do, and in my business, that's what made it successful, was having people that had the racing mentality. They just, in some cases they were racers, but I mean, in a lot of cases, the racing rubbed off on them and they didn't even know it was rubbing off on them. Leading at the peak, it was about 150 employees, and making a race team that big is not easy.
Right.
But I mean, I can remember sitting in my motorhome at Parker, and this guy comes walking up and wants to look at my truck, and it's Steve Appleton, the CEO of Micron Technology, my biggest customer. I mean, where in the world does that happen other than an off-road race?
Right.
And he comes in my motorhome, sits down, my dogs lick his face, he's laughing like crazy and dreaming someday of getting a truck. And he had already proved himself worthy in a buggy, and just, all walks of life are in off-road racing.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of motorsports, I can testify, that's not what you get at IndyCar or Formula One or Le Mans. Maybe a little with Dakar, because it's kind of off-road racing, where it's all walks of life. But the rest of it is all stratified, and it's not open to everybody.
Right.
I mean, and off-road racing is all comers.
And I think that's one of the things that I'm really proud of about our culture, is that that's what America's about, right? And that's
Positively.
that's what off-road racing's about. And it's one thing that I'll fight till the end to not lose, because I to your point of having the kids come up and be able to come up through a ladder system and get opportunity.
But when you say kids, I'm thinking 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
I'm not talking the little kids that don't even know what they're doing yet.
Yeah.
It's like, Dad put me in this and it moved.
Right.
We got to have the inspiration of 20 and up.
Sure.
And affordability for 20 and up.
Yep.
To where it's somehow character inspired. And maybe we find a way to do some kind of scholarship thing or something, and racers can contribute to the scholarship, and there's some methodology of determining, who's worthy. I mean, we have to at least dangle a carrot that you should look at this sport, 20-year-old young person.
Sure.
And it's not just guys either. I mean, I remember watching Becky Freeman and Day Gang and thinking, Gene and Judy Smith beat you guys by decades and
Right.
it laid the groundwork for women in motorsports. All in. I mean,
Yeah.
Sarah Price.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she's representing well across the globe.
Yeah.
There should be more.
Matlock.
Yeah. God, yes.
She's
and she's having fun doing it on top of that. Or Corey.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic world to be involved in off-road racing. There's no question. And I mean, it doesn't know race or color or sex or anything. It just knows dirt and working or dirt and not working.
Yes.
So
nice. I totally agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, I am dedicated to trying to help in all kinds of ways. The opportunity to share insights and opinion is much appreciated. There's no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think most of the time people don't listen to me anyways. So,
well, it's one of these things like, that bothers me about America is that you get to a place in your life where you've accumulated knowledge and then everybody stamps the retirement thing on you. Right. And there's this tendency from families to put people out to their pasture. Right. And cultures and different things. It's really funny because,
doesn't seem to happen in off-road though.
Not as much, right? Not as much. I think we do a better job of it, and it's an important thing. It was one of
all other motorsports. You're late 20s and you're done.
Yeah.
So,
but even like when you look at like business cultures, like like when you look at the business culture of like Japan, like they're like, man, you don't have any knowledge until you're 60. You know what I mean? They don't want you running the company until you're a certain age. Right. I don't know that I would go that far, but like being able to take the knowledge base that we have in off-road racing culture and listen to it and enact it. I mean, I think, for me, having these relationships with people like you, with people like Casey, it's taught me an immense amount. I think you just have to understand that the knowledge is there. You just have to go ask people and include them.
I guess if you're defining passion, what does passion mean? I mean, it's a love and an affection and a practice. A lot of times when I'm around younger people, I'll ask them this question: what do you go to school for? And what's the most common answer? Well, we go to school and they teach us everything. Oh, God, are you so wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you go to school to learn how to learn, and you practice that for the rest of your life. Well, off-road racing, you have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you learn every bump, every trail, every turn, every twist of a wrench, at this point, every programming of a GPS or a ECU or whatever, it's constant learning. And so it really takes logical thinking and the ability to learn. And it's not really a lot more complicated than that. You set your own limits.
Right.
I mean, I was going to college to be a photographer and a degree in humanities. And I ended up building computer chip machines because of people I knew in off-road racing that thought I could do it, that inspired me to do things I would never have dreamed could be done.
Yeah.
But, the ability to learn is pretty essential in off-road racing.
100%.
I'm not doing that again.
Well, there's consequence.
Yeah.
I mean, consequence is the greatest teacher.
Gonna be hungry and there's no restrooms and where's my sandwich? And I mean, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
God, that's what makes it so rewarding.
Yeah. Spend the night in the desert.
You want to avoid that. Yeah.
You learn pretty quick.
But I mean, in all honesty, some of those nights in the desert are the best. You're looking at the stars and you're listening to branches move in the wind. And as a volunteer, when you're out running a checkpoint or something, you get that.
Yeah.
And I've done sweep of courses where you're, going and letting people go and they don't want to go.
Yeah.
If they've made their camp. I don't know if you ever met Slim that used to volunteer for Casey.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't remember.
He was like the last true American hero and cowboy.
Right.
I mean, Caliente resident, grabby voice. First time I got sent out with Slim, Casey goes, don't be surprised if he doesn't say anything to you. He doesn't talk much. And I had a great day talking to Slim. And I don't even remember what we talked about. It wasn't any. I mean, I didn't learn about his history until later.
Yeah.
And the Slim stories, there should be a book of the Casey and Slim stories. But the dedication of Slim to his friend Casey was such that he lost his life cleaning course. Up in the mountains above Caliente, and a snowstorm came in, and his UTV got stuck, and he was by himself, just pulling lath and ribbon. And near as we could tell, he walked probably 4 miles in the snow, broke his leg in the snow, made a splint the best he could, used his belt and some twine I think he had, and some lath and parts of a juniper tree. I mean, pretty creative solution. Got another 2 miles, sat below a juniper tree, and that's where he took his last breath. And he was in his 90s. And there's a steel plaque there that talks about Slim Davidson, the last true American cowboy, and a true American. And true American is kind of, to me, what it's all about. And up in the tree, up above, is a stuffed monkey. Well, I'm there seeing this, and what's the deal with the monkey? Well, Slim was the police chief of North Las Vegas, and he got a call one day, and there was some disturbance somewhere. And all of a sudden, he hears one squad car and another, and he hears a fire cruiser there, and he's got to go say what's for himself. And he goes driving out there, and he looks up, and there's this monkey up in a tree. And it's stopping everything, traffic, and people are running into each other, and it's just chaos. He goes back to his car, which was like a 64 Galaxy or something, the way I read the news articles about it, opens the trunk, pulls out his hunting rifle, shoots the monkey, and yells, "Everybody back to work." Oh, man. To spend a day with a person that has that clarity of thought for problem solving was really an honor. There is no question. And so to go to where Slim took his last breath and see that to this day, people that knew him take a monkey out there every year and put it in the tree, that's dedication to a person.
Sure.
And wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty good with remembering things.
Yeah.
And absolutely blessed to have so many memories shared with me and so many memories experienced and so many just utterly legendary people. The patriotism side of things is ingrained in off-road racing.
Yep.
And it's kind of only in America do we have the opportunity to think, to create the same way. I mean, other countries think they do, but they've not to the same degree. It's just too cultural. And so, people talk about, well, Asia's going to eat your lunch. They're going to build better machines. But culturally, they don't have the creativity. And off-road racing is the ultimate motorsports creativity.
100%.
And it's just, I don't ever want to stop.
It's, it's funny because I'm always using analogies to explain things to people, right? And, and I love all these other forms of motorsports, and it's real fascinating to me, but I'm also very, not just proud, but very adamant that what we have here is the top of the food chain and super special, because it's not just, the people, the vehicles, which are all remarkable, but it's also where we race and what we have, right? And it's this expression. It's kind of like the John Muir mentality of like, nobody's going to most of the places that we go to, right? Yeah. The only people that we ever run into are miners, hunters occasionally. That's it. Ranchers, yep. Right? But the ranchers, a lot of those guys have gone away because of the economics of ranching. But it is the Wild West, right? Yeah. We go out into these areas that like they don't even know they're there, right?
Most of the rest of the world doesn't have a Wild West.
No,
we are lucky.
And it's funny too. And there's little funny things that remind me of it. And I was just talking to a friend, and he's in Europe, and he just bought a UTV, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we go on really long rides." I'm like, "Really? How long's your ride?" And he goes, we did 12 miles today." I'm like, 12 miles? I'm like, a good ride for us is 100 to 200 miles, right? That's a great day as far as we're concerned, right? And when you look at the scale of America and the scale of the open lands that we have, you know, it's stunning. And that's one thing that Casey really had a love for.
There's places we can go that we can't race.
Correct.
And Daryl folks put together something at Casey's request called the Nevada Adventure Tour.
Yep.
And it was for racers and their sons and daughters and eventually wives to be able to experience some of the magnitude of Nevada.
Yeah.
And for 13 years, I did it every year. And Sarah and I covered a lot of miles. And there's lexicon, like Raptor's Revenge came out of that. And it absolutely was the best year, looking forward to the next one type of thing. And I miss those now.
Sure.
And, you know, last year was the first year we didn't do one. And we're going to start our own somehow is what it's going to amount to.
You know, I think it's important because, like, I don't really care if you're on horseback or on a bicycle or hiking, however you want to enjoy, you know, our great outdoors and our nature. But off-roading is a very effective and very practical way. And I also look at it from a business standpoint of the economics of it. Like, we just got back the Department of the Interior report, and it breaks down how much, you know, how many billions of dollars off-road recreation is. And like, we're talking about outdoor recreation is like 3% of the GDP. It's bigger than oil and gas, right? And motorized recreation within that's like 60% of that. Yeah. And so just going forward and looking at how we manage those lands and keep them open, we are the people who are going to pay for that, right? Yeah. Because we're willing to say, we want this experience. We want it to be, you know, clean. We want it to be managed correctly. You know, so it's getting that. So I think, you know, seeing what's there to lose.
The phrase I'm going to use is a pendulum. Our government works. It's a pendulum. Sometimes it works the way we want. Sometimes it doesn't work the way we want, but it always averages out to being the greatest country on the planet because of the system of our government. Absolutely. It just averages it out. I can remember in the 80s, the Desert Tortoise was the end of all racing.
Yep.
I mean, we strapped inflatable pool tortoises on the 1600 car and pushed it down Fremont Street. And I can remember making fake plastic missiles to shoot at Gaddafi and strapped to the side of the car. There was always some disaster waiting to happen that was going to stop off-road racing. And if someone is worried about investing in off-road racing, I think there's other things they need to worry about, because the culture of finding a way always does. It's not going to stop. All right. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. And rightfully so. I mean, I don't want the beautiful places ripped apart, maybe more so than the average people that just donate to don'trippapart.com. All right. I believe that our system is what works, and we have to have faith in that. So the sport has a great future. The pendulum swings and we get upset because we want it all to go the way we want. But it works. Yeah. No, I agree. So, you agree with me too much. Not bad. I'm sure I could definitely find some disagreements, I'm sure. I will bet you that most off-road racers agree with more stuff than they disagree. Well, I think it's a great distiller of people, right? Yeah. Like, you don't get to this point and have a different mindset. So. I even think I'm going to take it another step. I think most people that go off-road at all, that go exploring, I mean, they don't have to race to care. And, sure. And I mean, thinking back to, I mean, how many hundreds of volunteers does it take for you to put on a race? A lot. A couple hundred? Yeah. I mean, they have to want to challenge themselves. So, definitely. They have to want to do something extraordinary. And they're not racing. They are enabling racing to occur. Yeah, you can't thank the volunteers enough. Really definitely not. So I was so happy to see Keith Permel got into the Off-Road Hall of Fame. That was cool. Because, I mean, unsung hero. Yeah. I mean, having been on the race frequency and closed down race courses for Best in the Desert for a number of years. And, working through the systems and the logic and his ability and he'll say it's his team up on top of the mountain, to keep track of people, to make sure they're safe, to know what's going on, and stand by. And a few seconds later, he comes back with last seen here, last seen there, do this, do that. I mean, that is an unsung hero if there ever was one.
Yeah.
So it's good to see it rewarded.
No, I love, that's one thing I love about the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. I just love that exists. Yeah. Because there's oftentimes people I don't even know of. I don't know what they've done, and then they get elected, or inducted, and I'm like, oops. You start seeing what this person had done, especially in the in the land management side of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, there are people all over this country that have just sacrificed so much that we have open lands, and racers and promoters and vehicle builders. I'm really stoked that people are getting the recognition that they deserve.
When it was first getting going, I went through the process of nominating Scott McKenzie. And I think I did a normal, what I do is I went over the top and overkilled with way too much information that should have made it a slam dunk. And I mean, interviewed him, and I got all his old magazines and copies. And I mean, I supplied probably 3/8 of an inch of thick of paperwork to make sure that they understood all the things that he had done. And then it comes around and he doesn't get in. And I'm devastated because it's like, this is just so unfair. I mean, what did I do wrong? And I finally got a hold of someone, and they said, well, it presented a new problem. He fit in too many areas, and they couldn't decide which one to put him in on. And I mean, this is the man that built a steel tube aluminum buggy out of a crashed Volkswagen that Myers used to make his inspiration for the fiberglass one.
Right.
So when people say that Bruce Myers created the dune buggy, he kind of copied Scott. That's how important Scott is to this industry, to the sport, to everything about it. The idea of enabling drivers. I mean, he picked drivers to race for him based on their skill and merit, and not what they brought in the way of dollars or anything else. And if you look at the list of people historically that drove for Scott, it's like all the legends.
Yeah.
I mean, pull one out of the sky that didn't drive for Scott back in the day. And then being around him and seeing the products that he created. I mean, there was just too many things that he did. Yeah. And I mean, he didn't even want to go. I had to go do a speech for him.
Right.
And I'm so proud of what he invested in me. I'm trying to invest in others.
Sure.
And give opportunities the same way. So, man, it sure made my life better.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So,
well, thank you for doing this.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor. I have so much respect for what you guys have accomplished and done, and thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right.